So, our reports show that one of the biggest challenges startups are facing is exiting on global markets. This is why we invited go-to-market strategies from Shopify Revenue, the company that operates on more than 180 foreign markets. Megan Herman will help us today to better understand the key factors to build a global success. Please welcome Megan Herman.
Hello. First of all, I just wanted to say that it feels so good to be back in Serbia. I actually had a chance to come here for the first time last year when my husband and 2 children took some time to travel, a sabbatical year of sorts. And so between the gorgeous architecture, the abundance of food and incredible wine, and the genuine welcoming personalities of those in Serbia, it easily was one of our top 5 places we visited last year. And so when Lazar invited me to come back and speak with you all, it was a really easy decision. In addition to traveling, another one of my passions is helping companies navigate through hypergrowth, and more specifically, in their international growth. Over the last 20 years, I've helped 2 fast-growing companies in finance and e-commerce expand their markets globally. And the result is that these 2 companies are now $1 billion companies. And while I'd love to take credit for all of that, I think that would definitely be a bit of a stretch. But I do want to talk to you today about the lessons I've gotten right and wrong about helping companies expand into international markets. Now, you'd think if you got to $100 billion, you'd done everything right. And that for a while there, that felt like the truth. We were focused on that low-hanging fruit. But the architecture we built, the foundations of our tech stack on, was built for a single market. And for a while, we didn't care. It felt good to be growing. We were enjoying that low-hanging fruit, and life seemed great. But eventually, with the competition in those markets and the saturation in those markets, our growth started to slow. So we all stared at each other and realized that we needed to prioritize growth in new markets. But we weren't set up to do so. Our tech stack was built for one market. Our people and partner ecosystems were all based in the US and Canada. And so today, I want to share with you some of the questions I wish we would have asked ourselves sooner to avoid some of the additional work we had to do to right the ship for one that was capable and ready for international expansion. Now, historically, Canadian companies default to expanding in the US to grow their markets. And while this appears to be the easiest path to growth, thanks to shared language, culture, and geographic proximity, the risk is that you have to put all your growth potential into one highly competitive and saturated market. There's a phrase in English around putting all of your eggs in one basket, and that is exactly what we tend to do. And while I'm not saying you shouldn't consider going there, I'm instead challenging you to think about either not defaulting to that typical strategy, or better yet, don't only take that one step. Think more broadly. In my e-commerce role, we already had over 170 countries. And while this looked great on the surface, the reality was that this market penetration was acquired through organic growth. And as a result, it was quite thin. We knew that if we truly wanted to grow our market strategy outside of the US, we need to focus our efforts on winning 2 or 3 countries where we had high product market fit, intentionally doubling down on the investments to start to capture a material market share of those markets. To do this, we invested in building a tool that provided us with a global stack rank of countries where we had high, medium, and low product market fit. We called this our Country Readiness Index. And we would update this index with new data every quarter, making our matrix smarter with every new learning we captured as we went further into each market. Our matrix included generic inputs like population size, GDP growth, internet access rates, global marketplace indexes. We also included industry-specific inputs such as global entrepreneurial index, discretionary income growth, and online commerce penetration. And finally, we layered in data we already had access to internally, like lead to customer conversion by country, existing merchant growth, and transactions made domestically versus cross-border. The output was a stack rank of countries where we had the greatest product market fit, providing us with the first data-informed list of countries we could start to intentionally try to win in. The countries at the top of the list were our priority 1 countries. These countries received our highest investment in terms of human resources and product roadmap prioritization, enabling us to open up the total addressable market, or TAM, with each feature we shipped. For countries that had medium product market fit, we called these our priority 2 countries. These received a smaller investment, but we were building a bit of a foundation to ensure that these markets were ready when we were ready to expand in the next 5 years. One of those seed investments in these priority 2 markets was to build up our local partner ecosystem, a topic I'll speak to a little bit more detail shortly. But for context, Shopify has a long history of leveraging mutually beneficial partnerships in the ecosystem to accelerate their growth. So this was a very natural seed investment. The other benefit of identifying priority 2 countries in our scope allowed us to identify overlapping product gaps between our priority 1 and our priority 2 countries. For example, we built a compliance feature for one of our priority 1 countries, and knowing that some of our priority 2 countries had their own version of compliance requirements, we built that feature in a way that we would be able to adapt and customize it by region down the road, ultimately reducing the duplication of effort as the team added more markets to scope. This act of looking for duplication across our entire country readiness stack rank turned into an internal operating principle for our team called Think Local, Act Global. And what that ultimately means is that while we're prioritizing the product features of our priority 1 markets, as we build them, we will build them in a way that they will be customizable and adaptable for future markets. Again, reducing that effort to build product market fit with every new market we graduate into our priority ranking. Now, I know that most of you that are here today are startups, and most startups do not grow by going it alone. And as I mentioned earlier, the e-commerce company I helped grow did so because we invested and valued our partner ecosystem. We leaned on these partners to help unblock our merchants with unique customization needs. And we developed mutually beneficial rev share models to encourage partners to build their clients' storefront on our software from day 1. And our app partners built solutions for niche industries or for merchant needs that were not yet built into our core product. All of this helped us grow in our market segments without having to wait for our product to be fully market ready. And during my time at one of Canada's largest financial services companies, I was able to witness firsthand how a private company can leverage their local government to grow internationally. Jean Chrétien, Canada's Prime Minister from 1993 to 2003, led numerous trade missions to China, which helped strengthen bilateral relations and open doors for Canadian companies in various sectors, including finance and insurance. In 1996, Manulife leveraged this open door and successfully signed a joint venture with Sinochem, a Chinese chemical manufacturer with a diversification in financial services. This joint venture marked one of the first entries of our foreign-funded life insurance company into the Chinese market, and at a time when China's middle class was just starting to experience exponential growth, which is the exact target market for Manulife's financial products. And over my time at Manulife, this example lived on the literal company walls, with pictures of our Prime Minister, Jean Chrétien, holding his own pair of scissors at that ribbon-cutting ceremony in China so many years ago. And over the years, it also became quite clear that getting this foothold in one of the region's most influential countries at the time set Manulife up to continue to expand into markets across all of Asia, riding a similar wave as each of these countries experienced their own economic development and subsequent expansion of the middle class, their exact target market. Now, it's one thing to have product market fit, and it's another to actually translate it into traction. Genuine localization of our marketing collateral was something we prioritized only after we fell on our faces a few times in the early days, ignorantly thinking that localizing marketing started and stopped with translation. This marketing was not only ineffective, but it sent a message to the market that we were not serious about building in their market, and that we were just another foreign company who eventually would pull out of the market because it was just too hard. In my e-commerce company, we were uniquely disadvantaged as our product was not the type of product that you bought once and you were done. We were asking our customers to put the success of their own livelihoods, their businesses, in our hands, trusting that we were going to be there for the long term and evolve our product to support their growing business, including accounting for their local needs. But after hiring local marketing resources, it was incredible to see how different the strategies were. For example, we placed a higher focus on compliance on our homepages for some countries in Europe. And we completely redesigned our Japanese landing page to be a one-page web design where you scrolled to review additional information versus clicking to learn more, as we learned that culturally that was considered quite clunky at the time. And then, of course, we invested in localizing our photography and more prominently showcasing local brands we had already built trust with to run their business. All of these learnings came from a mix of failing, hiring local experts, and then trusting our local experts to prioritize the biggest opportunities to drive lead to customer conversion, and ultimately helping us get that early traction in the market that we needed to start driving high-quality leads into our funnel. Now, there's an old saying, where you stand depends on where you sit. It's called the Miles Law, and it's attributed to Rufus Miles of Princeton University in the 70s. The point is that one's perspective is always shaped by their environment. And when you're building a company, that law means you're very unlikely to understand how to sell in a new market if you don't have boots on the ground. As I mentioned earlier, one of the investments we made in priority countries was to hire local. For priority countries, this included a starter team of a local general manager, a partner manager, and a marketer. Later on, we hired engineering and data resources, playing the global talent pipeline to our advantage to fill roles that were extremely competitive in North America at the time. And while this was certainly a major unlock for driving our localization efforts, this one came with the most trade-offs. We had to make decisions on hiring under a legal entity versus our local employment agency. Our team meetings stretched multiple time zones, resulting in very early and very late calls. And of course, there's the challenge of quickly building trust with these invaluable in-market colleagues without the more organic relationships you get when you see each other in the office every day. However, the benefits quickly started to outweigh the trade-offs. Our first product roadmap session not only included a healthy debate on which features to prioritize by country, but it came with instantaneous local market context that was translated for our specific growth goals. Previously, we would have had to hire an external agency or get in line for a UX researcher internally, and even then, they were not likely to have in-market context. Our in-market teams also came with their own networks, including partners, trusted marketing agencies, and dev shops that could help us, that we could leverage to accelerate our growth and drive that growth in market without having to hire a massive team. In tandem, we also took advantage of Canada's diverse workforce, hiring people who had spent a portion of their lives in our target market, but also understood the Canadian ecosystem. These people were incredible translators, connecting the dots and calling out the cross-cultural nuances as we found our footing as a truly global team. Okay, so let's do a little recap. If step one is to break your region's default international playbook by using data to provide you with your first stack rank of countries that you have the highest product market fit for, you are now ready to start exploring potential partners in those markets while also working with your local government to understand if there are any programs or existing initiatives that you can leverage to gain more velocity in those markets. Next, take a fresh look at your existing marketing collateral. Engage either someone in the market to provide feedback or leverage an in-market agency to help you put together your first truly localized campaign. Ensure you build it in a way that you can measure if it's attracting your target segment, and potentially leverage A/B tests so that you can truly learn which strategies result in high-quality leads. And finally, when you're ready to prioritize your first set of international markets, start hiring your version of that starter team, a team that can take those first 3 steps and evolve them to be even more localized while also playing that crucial role as an in-market feedback loop on where you need to tweak and iterate on your go-to-market strategy to unlock even more growth. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. And remember, while it's easy to think about international expansion as the EU, or maybe you're likely to, like companies I've worked with, and you have your eye on the US, I encourage you to take a look at this report from PwC about the world economy in 2050. These projections tell a very different story from what international expansion strategies most companies are using today. The time to build that future is now. Getting into these emerging markets, like the Manulife example I shared earlier, setting your organization up to ride this projected economic development because you gave yourself a head start to build those relationships early and work out some of the kinks in your product before the real growth in your funnel hits. And if the opportunity for growth is not convincing enough, the final thought I will leave you all is that the world's tech economy is dramatically different from that of 10 years ago. A decade ago, we were focused on Silicon Valley, New York, and Boston. Maybe in Europe, it was London, Berlin, and Paris. And 10 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have traveled from Canada to speak at a tech conference in Serbia. Today, there are thriving tech ecosystems in almost every country on Earth. Startup Genome tracks over 350 tech ecosystems. Countries that used to be developing economies that are now on their way to driving the global economy. This call to action is not only a growth opportunity, it's a warning that if you don't capture a share of these markets, it will increasingly be likely that a local startup will. So if you're going to build the world's next great tech company, you need to challenge the existing international expansion playbook. Identify where your product has unique opportunity to serve one of those emerging markets, and get comfortable feeling uncomfortable as you break some of your own internal norms to truly become a global powerhouse and build global from day one. Thank you.